I would say everyone should try to install that the personal edition in their system. So whatever we practice here, it will be easy for you to replicate in your local and get some hands on there. Okay, so yesterday we covered what are predefined and user-defined classes. Today, let's try to understand what are concrete and what are concrete classes and abstract classes from our applications example. Right. Let me create a so let's try understanding what are classes in much more detail. Right. So there are two types of classes basically. In Pega, we did see predefined and user-defined classes. The other two types of classes are uh, concrete and oh my bad, sorry. Are you guys able to see my screen now? Yes, sir. Perfect. So yesterday we saw what are predefined and user-defined classes. We went into our application and we verified what are predefined classes. Predefined classes are something like work dash, data dash, at the rate base class. We saw these, right? Yes or no? Perfect. So now we understood that whatever Pega has shipped as part of this product are predefined classes which Pega has created and we are just using it. And whatever we create, when we created the application, new classes got created. Those are user-defined classes, which we saw yesterday. If I open the class list and I filter for alpha and I filter for alpha, I see that these were the classes which got created for us. And then these are created on the latest, like on 17th, like a couple of days before when we tried to create. Let's try to open one of the classes here. Let's say alpha. Okay. So now when you open this class, you see a couple of things in this rule form, right? In this class rule, you see something called as abstract, right? And then there is a version in which it belongs to, like 0 1 0 1 0 1. And then there is inheritance. Did we discuss inheritance other day? Like yesterday, we also saw what is inheritance, right? With respect to dog, and for example, between cars, and also between humans, there is inheritance, right? Whatever the parent has, the child can access those, right? Perfect. So what the same thing is what we are trying to say here. What we are saying here is alpha is a class which has this as parent. How do we know any class what is the parent for it? One best way to identify that is, for example, you have a list of classes. You can go into any class. For example, if I go into data class here, right, I'll see that data dash is the parent for it. Okay, and this is an abstract class. So in the same way, see what exact class is this. Where is work? Let me try to open this. You will see the difference. You see, it tells it's a concrete class. Do we see the difference? Few classes are abstract, few classes are concrete. If you see the work class specifically, they have called it as a concrete class. Very important. I would want you to focus here, a concrete class is the one where you can initiate a business transaction. You know, getting noise from someone. If you can mute. A concrete class is a class where you can initiate a business transactions, in the sense, like whenever you try to, for example, when you call a customer and say, hey, I want insurance for such and such a thing, for example, auto insurance, then the work gets created under this class. What does a class have? Like the other day when we saw in Java, when we were trying to look, what does a class have? A class has nothing but, you know, let me come back and show you. A class has attributes, right? Attributes and behaviors. A car class has certain attributes or properties, right? And then it also has a behavior. Same thing is true in Pega also. Whenever you create a class, under this class, you can create properties or attributes. Okay, and under any class, you can create attributes as well as behaviors. You can create methods also. We'll see that. Okay, we'll see that in detail. Don't get overwhelmed with this information, but just trying to introduce you the concept of classes within Pega, right? There are two types of classes. One is concrete and abstract class. What is a concrete class? Concrete class is a class on top of which you can create business transactions, for example, like we discussed, right? Two types of classes, concrete and abstract. And what is concrete class? Example is work class for your application. Is our the work class for our application a concrete class? Yes, right? To understand in a much better fashion, I'll show you how exactly we can relate to it. In application, it's a concrete class, and a, a class where business transaction is performed is a concrete class. Okay, and what is abstract? Exactly opposite to what is concrete, right? You can't create class where you can't create a business transaction. What does a business transaction mean? We'll see that, don't worry. For a normal understanding, business transaction is, for example, you go to a pizza store, you order a pizza, right? That pizza goes through a certain cycle, right? Like you place an order and then a lot of stuff happens, and then you get a number also. Hey, your token number is Pizza Hut hyphen 1234, right? That is nothing but a task being done or a business transaction happening. Your business is pizza. That was the transaction you did, and then you got an ID for that. That is a business transaction. We can also call it as a work object because you got an ID, which corresponding to which you can get your job done, right? And all such information goes and sits in concrete classes. That's why they say class where business transaction is done is concrete class. We'll see that in detail. Don't worry about that. Just understand that concrete class is a class where business transaction is done, and a class where you can't is a small word, I would say, cannot create a business transaction, right? Is that sort of a thing. And few of the classes are, for example, concrete classes are like for insurance, we created one work class. Same way, if we have loan process, we will have a a work class for loan, like that. What is a abstract class? You can see, like, uh, the organization name which we gave, it also got created as a class here. Yes or no? You see under classes, this was the organization name we gave, right? Alpha. Do we agree? Okay. To understand this better, you know, let's take this organization only as example, and let me go to, okay, and let me, okay, organization. Alpha is my organization, right? And then if you see, there is a division under that. Right? If alpha is organization, for example, I can also have, there is something called as a division, and there is a unit for it. If you notice, use pointer. Is it not what we have seen here? For example, when I try to open this organization, and here you will see that alpha is the organization, right? And if I see the chart, if I expand this, see, alpha is the organization, and there is a division, and there is a unit for this particular organization. Every organization will have a organization name. There will be a division. For example, Reliance will have organization name as Reliance, and the division will be something more specific. For example, it could be a division with respect to the line of business. For example, petroleum is a division, and then telecommunication, where they sell their geo, is also a division, and petroleum also is a division, and trends, where they do sell their fashion and clothing, is a division. Under that, they have many units, right? Every state where they are selling, that can be a unit for them. Yes or no? Are you able to understand organization, division, and unit, right? And if you also see, mm, one more thing, if you see here, when you see a class, for example, the work class which got created, this has the organization name as the top thing, and I can try to also view this from the inheritance structure which we saw other day. I'll show you again. If I see the inheritance view, you will see that, see, alpha is a top level class, right? And then the, of course, the it is built on top of at the rate base class, right? Yesterday we saw for all the classes, the parent class will be at the rate base class. Did we see that yesterday? Right? On top of which work dash is there, on top of which work dash cover dash is there, on top of which alpha comes, on top of which alpha FW is there. Here, don't think that these two are two different things, but alpha is then, for example, it is like, car, and here it is like car hyphen BMW. Then you would read this as car hyphen BMW hyphen KST. Did we see an example like that? Yes. Do we understand how exactly inheritance is working? So here, this is a super parent, okay, and work dash parent is at the rate base class. Work dash hyphen cover dash parent is work class. Alpha's parent is work dash hyphen cover dash, also work dash, also at the rate base class. Whatever is defined in at the rate base class, alpha can use. Yes or no? Any property or attribute which you have declared in at the rate base class, you can do, alpha also can use. Didn't we see that whatever attributes we had defined in car, or for example in dog, we were able to use in KSD also? Yes or no? The dog had the bark method. If you remember, see, the dog had the bark method and the race attribute. However, we were able to use that in KST also. Though KST is just inheriting from German Shepherd, but internally German Shepherd is also a child of dog, right? That is why we were able to use the bark method. Same thing is true here. You know, when you see this hyphen, it is nothing but the left hand side is the parent, is what we have to understand. So for alpha hyphen FW, for hyphen FW, alpha is the parent. For alpha inshu, alpha hyphen fw is the parent, and all these others also are parents. In the sense, whatever you define above here can be utilized by this particular class. We'll see that, but just understand how exactly these classes will look like. Tomorrow when you go into application, you will see classes like this with hyphen and stuff like that, of which work class is very vital. Work class is something which you will be using very often. All the work you create will be going under work class. Very important to remember and understand the work class of your application. Is this the work class of your application? Alpha hyphen fw hyphen alpha insure hyphen work. This is the work class of your application. Now, if I switch to my auto insurance application, let's go there. These are deep technical discussions, so you will have to concentrate a little. You will have a lot of doubts. Don't worry about that. Gradually, when we try to keep working on the product, you will see that those will get clarified. Whatever you have, we can of course discuss at the end of the class. But I'm just giving you a heads up that it will be a little, slightly it might go sometimes above your head. Don't worry about that. We will of course try to take a look at that in much detail. So now I switched into the auto insurance application, which was built on top of our framework application. Yes or no? Right. Now if you see here, see @base class is again the parent of all. Perfect. And then work dash is again on top of it, work dash store dash. This will be common across. You can go anywhere in any application. This will be common. This will never change. Whatever will change is here. Why? Because these are user defined classes. Yes or no? Are you guys able to understand, guys? Perfect. Okay. Okay. With that understanding, uh, so here for this particular implementation application, the one which we saw before was a framework application, like your base, on top of which we have built this auto insurance application. Yes or no? Let me open this class. Right. See, this will be a concrete class. Concrete class is a class where you can do business transactions. You can build business transactions. That should be our understanding. Okay. So what all we understood right now? We understood that there are two types of classes, predefined and user defined. Anything with respect to alpha we saw are user defined classes, and whatever was built given by Pega as part of the product are predefined classes. Perfect. Okay, that is a good understanding. Good. So this particular work class is also called as implementation class. So let me copy this. Yes. It depends where you create it. For example, if I create anything under work, you will be again joining that in. I will show you that also. No worries. Okay. So this is your auto insurance implementation application work class. Do we agree? Yes or no? This is where business transaction is done. That is why this is a concrete class. Concrete class is a class to which you can create object. Like we saw here, all these are concrete classes. Why? You can create an object for it. Did we create an object here? How did we create? We created a KST, a var object reference, and we used new keyword and we created an object. On top of that object, we access the attributes of parent classes. Similarly, here concrete classes are something for which you can create objects or business transactions. That's what they call. So this work class is very important. Why? It is also called as, work class is also called as implementation class. It is also called as work class group. It is also called as work pool. It is also called as work layer. All these are just another names, but something which should hit your head as soon as we discuss is when someone tells work class, you should know that it is your applications class where your work is done. In the sense, for example, if someone comes for auto insurance, if you try to create auto insurance quote, it will go and sit under this class. Do we understand what is a business transaction now with concrete class? So if you try to see your organization, the class structure also, let's try to see that. See, it is telling the parent for this is, right? The parent for this is work dash. The directed parent is work dash. What is directed and pattern will come there also. Don't worry. If I try to show you the inheritance, you will understand better. If you see the inheritance here, it tells auto. The directed parent is, so if you see here, the directed parent is alpha. So for work, the directed parent is alpha as well as work dash cover dash. When they say both, they mean pattern as well as directed. What is this pattern? What is this directed? Don't worry about that. I will help you understand. When you try to look for attributes, for example, going back to our basic example, right? So where is this race attribute defined or declared? Is it declared in dog class? Right? But when when you try to refer this in KST, when the system tries to look for this attribute, you know what it does? It first looks in this particular class. Does it see the race attribute here? In the sense, does it see something called race defined here? If not, what it does, it goes to its parent. Who is KST's parent? German Shepherd. Very good. So it goes to German Shepherd. And then what it does, it sees, oh, is the race attribute defined here somewhere? Is it defined here? It doesn't find it here, right? Then again, what the system does, it sees, is it an inheritance from any other class? Yes, dog. So it goes to the dog class. And then it tells, hey, I found the attribute here. Then it sets the property for that. You see the property you have set? Like, this is original K9. You set the property to original K9. The property was declared in dog, but you are able to use that in a child class. Yes or no? So whatever you are seeing here is directed inheritance. Here you are directly telling, hey, go and look here and go and look here, like that, because you are using that extends keyword and you are telling. The same way in Pega, what they do is there is something called as pattern inheritance type and directed inheritance type, where this is only needed when you try to look for properties, whatever properties you have created. For example, if there is a property under base class, okay. So how do we know if there are any properties are nothing but attributes like how we have declared there. So we can also see those. Let me show you that. We'll see the next class is about properties, but just to give you a understanding, I'm just showing you that. See, now that's a category called data model. After that, if I try to look at properties, see, do you see so many properties created exactly similar to what we have created that like base is one property we created, right? Like that, at the rate base class has all these properties. So many properties it has. All these properties are usable by any class which extends from base class. In the sense, think that this is the dog class and all the other classes are like child classes. They can access all these properties. That is why we will be using this inheritance, the pattern and directed inheritance. And how exactly uh, you will be accessing that is something which we will be looking at in detail. But just understand that, you know, from these classes, you know, work class is very important. It is also called as class group. It is also called as work layer. It is also called as work pool. Okay, that is where most of the magic happens. We'll see why is that of that much importance. We'll try to understand that. Okay, concrete classes also are of three types. If you try to see, for example, if you see this is a concrete class. Agreed. Work is a concrete class, and this class is a class group, is what it tells. So remember this concrete class and this. All these are pretty basics. Will you understand it in the first go? No, no one understands it in the first go. Don't worry about that. Just try to see, relate to it, and see what makes sense to you. And let us, I'll take you further from there. Types of concrete classes. And now for our work class, our work class. Okay, the first thing we saw here is in this thing you see that it's a concrete class. This work class is a concrete class, right? And this class is a class group is what it tells. Okay, just let's note it down. So one type which we saw is uh, this class option is showing is a class group. Which class was this? This was a concrete class, the work class, right? And you are seeing it was written that is a class group for this thing. Let's say work class. Okay, is a class group. Now let's also look at, I'll show you something more interesting. That was one of the concrete classes. Now let us go here and look for other classes under alpha application. Under alpha application, I'm just filtering for those classes to show you different types of concrete classes. Like I said, it won't be like straightforward, but it will just take you some time. I'm trying to open data class now. Alpha auto data class. This is my implementation application data class. Data dash. So I'll try to help you explore the other options in this thing. So when I try to choose concrete on a class, there are three options. One is a class group, does not belong to a class group is the other option. The other option you have is does not belong to a class group and the other option you have is belongs to a class group. So three options under concrete class. Whenever you declare it as concrete, you have three options. One is a class group. Second thing is belongs to a class group, right? And the third is does not belong to a class group. What is a class group? Class group is a group under which, for example, any business transaction which gets created that gets associated with that. What does that mean? Again, it's slightly technical, but I'll show you something. If that makes sense to you, we'll try to take it. We know that whatever is gets created in application gets stored in a database, right? Like the first class which we read, there's a database at the back end which is dealing with, yes or no? Whatever you create gets saved in database in application. Do we agree? Right? Same way, when you try to open any class in Pega, you see a test connection button on the bottom of that class. See, the most of the tasks we are doing here, that is why this is called as work area. If you remember, I had told that the work area will be the place where we will be doing most of our tasks, right? So that is why this is called as work area panel. That's fine. So in a class, to understand where exactly does this class sit or which table is this mapped to understand that every class has this button called test connection. And when I try to do that, it shows me, what is this mapped to? Do you see this? The class alpha auto hyphen work is mapped to this table. This is nothing but your work table in the sense, whatever you create, for example, if someone came and asked for a auto insurance, the case which gets created, for example, alpha hyphen 1234 is your case which got created. That gets saved here. And this particular table, the work table, whichever class it is mapped to, will be called as your class group. I'll explain again, don't worry. The class, this is your work class. We agree to that, right? Alpha auto hyphen work. Yes or no? This work class is very important because at the back end, this gets mapped to one of the database tables. How can I know that? I can go into the class form. I can open the class form, the class form. And then when I go to the bottom, I can hit test connection and it gives me the mapping. This class is mapped to what table in the database? To this data.pc alpha auto alpha work. This table, whichever class this table gets mapped to, will be called the class group. Yes, we don't do that. So Pega automatically does this. When you try to create an application, do you remember anytime did that we created this work class or all these classes, for example, the classes which we see here? Do we remember creating any of these classes other than this one? We created this other day, if you see, 19th. Other than this one, do you remember creating any of these classes? We didn't create this, right? When we tried creating an application from this drop down, Pega automatically created all these classes for us. In the sense, these are like basic necessities which are needed for you to create your application, which Pega understands and it creates you by default. Mhm. We can do that. So for that, first you have to identify what will be your work class. What happens is, I mean, it's slightly off topic, but can we do it? Yes, we can do it. And typically in most of the applications, they do that. You know, they do that. It's doable and it's just a mapping which you have to change, which is straightforward. I can show you that, but right now, I mean, with the interest of time, I'll just proceed with this thing. But you can, of course, ping me and I can help you understand how exactly that is done. Is it okay? Perfect. Okay, coming back. our focus is my work class. What is my work class? Alpha auto hyphen work, right? And what we said, we called the this class is by default, it was telling it is a class group. In the sense, what is a class group? Class group is something which is mapped to the work table at the backend. Inside the database, if it is mapped to the work table, then it is a class group. Now, if I create a class under this, for example, let us say I create a class. So anything which gets created under this class, under the work class, for example, if I created another class under the work class calling HR, okay, work alpha auto hyphen work hyphen HR, if I create, and then if I tell belongs to a class group, then it will be belonging to this particular class group. In the sense, whatever business transaction you create gets stored under the same table. And if I tell doesn't belong to a class group, I don't want any business transaction to be created under that class is what I mean. And if I tell is a class group, then I need to have a separate mapping for that particular table. So let's try to see for other classes what does this say. You know, where is my classes? Perfect. Okay. Let's try to put this for alpha. Okay, and I'll open my another work class which is my framework level. Then let's try to hit the this connection. Can you see this difference? See, PC alpha hyphen FW alpha insurance. This is a different table, right? If you see for the auto insurance work class, the table was alpha auto hyphen work, and for the insurance at the framework level, the work class whatever is present for that, the table name is different. Do we understand? If I choose is a class group, then I'll have two different tables mapped to it. Like the table will be different for that particular class. See, this is my auto work class, right? For that, the table name is alpha auto work. Same way, the work class at my framework level is this alpha hyphen FW hyphen insure, and that is mapped to a different work class. Do we understand this? Okay. This is why it is called a class group. It will be called a class group only if it is mapped to the the work class you are working on. If it is mapped to a distinct or a separate table, then it will be called a class group. Why? Because every transaction you create will go and sit in this table. Now, if you want any other cases to be created under the same class, for example, if I have a HR division under work, okay, and then I want those cases to go and sit in the same table, then I will say belongs to a class group. In the sense, whatever class you are creating will be belonging to this particular class group. Does it make sense? Now, if you don't want to create work objects or any cases, you can choose this does not belong to a class group. In the sense, you won't be able to create any cases and put the data under these tables. When we try to do the implementation, we'll understand it in much better way. But right now, just understand that in concrete, you have three different options: is a class group, does not belong to a class group, and belongs to a class group. Does it make sense? Perfect. I do have that in there. No problem. Okay. So stepping ahead from here. So now we understood couple of things, right? One is what is a work class is something which we understood. Any business transaction which gets created under a class, then that class would be termed as a work class. It is also called as class group, implementation class, or work pool, or work layer. Why? Because it is the primary reason is it is getting mapped to this thing. Very important question in most of the interviews. Do you know what is a work class? You should clearly tell that is a class under which my business transactions get stored. What do you mean by that is what if he asks, you'll be telling if I want to understand which table my work class is mapped to, I can open that the class rule form, I can click on test connection and I can see the work table to which this particular class is mapped. Did we see that? So if you see, two things are common here. In the table name, if you see PC and underscore work is common. So when you don't have any this thing, ideally it is PC underscore work is the table name to which it gets mapped. Does it make sense? If you see here, both the tables are work tables. These are called as work tables. Why? Because they store the work data there. For example, if I create auto insurance quote, that data goes and sits here. We'll be seeing that. I'll be showing you the database view also, how you can access that and how that is going to be done. But just giving you a head start, like, even before reaching that place, you try to see the map, right? Okay, where exactly we are going. Just to give you that understanding is what I'm trying to do. We saw, you know, concrete classes and abstract classes, of which in concrete we had three different options. One is class group, one is does not belong to a class group, and belongs to a class group. And all this is just related to your work table. How can I know what is my work table? I can open that particular class and hit on test connection button to understand which particular class this particular uh, work class is mapped to. I can hit test connection and then you will see Pega will tell you, hey, your class, which is alpha insure hyphen work, is mapped to this table. What does this table contain and stuff? We'll see that. Database basics are something which is expected to that you guys should know. Something a place where you can learn that is called as W3 schools. Yeah. You can go to W3 schools and hit SQL. Try to do this whenever you get an opportunity. Very easy, like even someone who just knows English can understand and do this. It has very organized way of learning SQL. Understand and learn SQL, very important. Even if you are not trying to do anything, you're learning this will help you a lot in terms of how to understand a given data. This will help you a lot. Just try to spend some time every day. 10 minutes also will make a huge difference. To learn anything, you will need database details. Database details is something which is very important. But to query that, you need to know this language. So when you get a chance, just try to see. Very simple. They explain it in a very baby step sort of approach. Just when you get a chance, w3schools.com is what if you hit, you will see their SQL division. Just look for SQL and then try to learn this. There's some homework which I want to give you so that you guys are ready to understand. Right? So we understood what is uh, concrete class, and in concrete class a case type, sorry, the mapping with respect to the work table is something how to do that we understood. We also understood what is does not belong to a class group mean, and what does belongs to a class group mean. Perfect? Yes or no? One thing we should understand is the parent for work class. For example, where is my work class? See, the parent for work classes is always, work dash cover dash. You know why? Because that's the design in which, for example, it's like telling Pega has predefined this thing for you. If you want, you can change that. But when it's shipped, it comes like that. It's like telling uh, dog will be parent for German Shepherd. For any work related classes, work dash cover dash will be parent. The same way, when I go into work dash cover dash, you will see that work dash is the parent for this guy. See that? Yeah, it is abstract, but it's like telling that would be a parent. The same way you can do it in Java. It's exactly similar to what Java has. I can create an abstract class and I can make it a parent for this guy. You know, and whatever it just means that you can't have a work table mapped to that. When you say abstract, it is just to support reusability, to create few properties and reuse it. What abstract means is you can't create object for that. So to help you understand much better, I can do this. Let me show you this. Slightly interesting. Yes, exactly. Does not belong to a class group, but you can create a pages on top of it. I mean objects for it. With this thing, you can't. That's why I don't want to call it like that. I want to create a class. So if I show you here and in the name I tell, mm, you know, let's verification. I think 10 more minutes left. I'll just do this and I'll show you. Abstract class. Okay. Now I will tell string name is one property I am creating. Public static void main string r. Don't worry about the signature and all. Just see this thing. Something which you have to see is this. What abstract class means is, for example, if I try to create v1, v is equal to new of verification, and then try to do this, see, it will throw me an error. Cannot instantiate the type verification, in the sense, for abstract classes, you can't create objects. Does it make sense? Why we use this? Just to create properties, just to create properties or to create some behaviors, we'll use this. But we can't instantiate this. Abstract classes in Pega also are the same thing. You can't create work object for this. Do you see that test connection button here? No. Why? Because you can't create an object out of these classes. That is why you don't see that. And the only reason why this is available is so that for reusability, you can reuse, you can make use of. For example, there are certain properties which you don't want to keep in your work class. Then you can use these abstract classes to store those properties. We'll understand that, but just understand right now that abstract means you can't create object out of it, or you can't create an instance out of it. You can't instantiate this. What does that mean? I'll show you. It's like a plan which you are not going to use to build. You're just going to use it as a support document. When you're trying to building something, there will be a pakka plan and then there will be a kacha plan. Like you won't be using that, but it is needed for you to put down the piping or something like that. Just understand it like that. Understand that you can't create business transactions on top of it. Does it make sense? Okay, I'm not sure how many minutes are left. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You cannot, yeah, database, yes, to a table. You can, I mean, from a mapping standpoint, there are certain tweaks you can do, but to the work table, you can't save anything. When you're choosing, it does not belong to a class group. Yes, yes. So I think from here we have to look at pattern and directed inheritance much in detail, which we will see. But today we understood how to go to classes is something, you just have to click on records from the Explorer and then click on sysadmin, click on class, and then you will be able to see all the classes of which I came here. I filtered for alpha and I saw the classes. And then we can open any class by clicking here. You can click here and you can see what that class contains. Oh, it is a concrete type of class. It belongs to this version. Oh, it is a class group. That means, oh, there is a mapping for a table. Is what something which should make sense to you. You should start learning that. So what these keys and all are that once you do that course, you will know. Click on test connection. By clicking on test connection, you can understand which table it is mapped to. These are the takeaways from today's class. What I want you to take away from here is this thing from today. Like from today's class, you should be. Uh-huh. Mhm. Yes, yes, it is that. So to understand this thing, what you have to do is you first need to go over these SQL statement. I think you already have gone, but I'm just telling with interest of all the people who have joined. You need these as well. You need to just know it is not too hard. Just give it a try. It is very easy. You can easily understand and do that. I'm not sure how many minutes are left, but okay. I think 4 more minutes, I guess. Mhm. That's right. That's right. Yes. Mhm. Yes, yes. It's like telling you have a safe in your home, and how will you access that? Using a key, right? For example, if you have to enter a home, you will have a key. Only that key, using that key, you can enter a home. Table is also exactly similar to that. Just imagine table as any table which has a lock in your home. If you are keeping something inside this thing, and then there is a key. Using that key, you will be accessing that. This is exactly similar to that. In the Yes. Hmm. That's right. That's right. Hmm. Yes, depending upon which version you log into. We haven't reached the versioning and rule set part yet, so I don't want to confuse everyone here. But yes, you're right. That is associated with the version. So tomorrow, okay, yes. For example, tomorrow you want to you're installing. For example, your application is running, and now you added new changes which belong to a newer version, and for some reason it stopped working. When you try to take that out, you need to know which exact version it went inside, right? Do you understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I know you guys have many more questions, but we'll, of course, when we try to do the implementation at the runtime, we'll understand it much better. So I have created a group on WhatsApp. I'm just updating there whenever the class is there. So if you guys are interested, you can join into that, and then we can take it further from there. Whoever is interested in continuing further, you can drop a note to this particular number. It's a US number, so remember to use +1 84821999369. 84821999369. Use +1 in here and then WhatsApp me if you're